So they want to manufacture terror, health crises,
right,
things that will keep people afraid, because fear is the great equalizer for them.
Yeah.
Keeps everything under control. So, and
well, they like to keep the public distracted too.
like, people don't realize Europe, all of the royal families of Europe are just the rich people. That's all they are. They're nothing but the rich people, and they've got a permanent system where they own everything and they're in charge, and they own all the major natural resources, and it's a monopoly for them.
Yep.
And they're heavily invested into the United States and Canada, and their money interests control what happens here too.
Well,
so, you know, the big, at least what happened in the United States was, when we had the rise of the robber barons, Rockefeller, Carnegie, DuPont, these guys, when they got to the height of their financial empires, they secretly unified by creating a company called the American International Corporation.
Yeah.
That company spun off secretly, unbeknownst to most people, hundreds of other companies with names like United Fruit, stuff like that.
Yep.
And
that's right.
So what they did was they went and they pooled their money in order to create a monopoly of all the major resources that they needed to control in order to gain all the wealth of the planet, basically. So, you know, and we're still living with that power structure that they created today.
Well, the Rockefellers, they hijacked medicine in the early, I think it was around 1906, when they first started with their medical foundations.
Right.
You see, in the early 1900s, there was practitioners of empiric medicine, and there was practitioners of allopathic medicine, chemical medicine. Now, the guys selling the chemicals weren't doing very good, because those old farmers knew better than to take chemicals. They went to the guy that had the empiric medicine. So when Rockefeller started his foundation, what he did, he just shoved empiric medicine out the back door, and all they pushed was allopathic, chemicals, because there's big money to be made in that.
Right.
But that old Mr. Rockefeller himself, you know what kind of medicine he took? Would you believe empiric? He didn't take no allopathic medicine. He knew better, but he didn't mind giving it to us.
You're talking about the original Rockefeller,
John D. Rockefeller. Yeah. Skinny-faced old weasel. Murderer. One of the greatest mass murderers in history. But I mean, when you look at all these people, they talk about genocide. You know, Joseph Stalin, he killed millions. Hitler killed millions. How many people have these guys killed? They killed more than Stalin and Hitler put together, for God's sakes.
Right. Well, the Bilderbergers created Stalin and Hitler.
Yes.
That's just their little puppet show to keep people scared.
That's right. Well, they fund both sides of the war. They make profit no matter what happens.
Exactly.
That's all it's about.
And war makes more money than anything under the sun.
Right.
Your average corporation will make 18 times more profit during war than they can ever make during peace. So they manufacture wars in order to get that 18 times more profit. You know, it's like, it's just greed. That's all it is.
But I mean, these people know the harm, the destruction. And it sickens me now. I mean, where Dad fought in the Second War, I mean, I'm a big student of the Second War. It was about 5 years ago when I woke up finally, because I was sitting there one night watching a documentary, and it suddenly dawned on me. I said, well, Hitler took power in 1933 as Chancellor of Germany. Now, Germany during the 1920s, the Weimar Republic, they were busted. And buy a loaf of bread, took a wheelbarrow full of paper money. So, how does a man become Chancellor of Germany that is broke, and in 6 years you're taking on the world? Where did the money come from? And as soon as I asked myself that question, it became very obvious what was going on.
Skull and bones.
You got it.
Money came through the Union Bank, which was controlled by
Mr. Bush. Prescott
company.
Bush.
But Bush just works for Rockefeller.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. J.P. Morgan was the same thing.
You know the name that runs through the Bush family more than any others is named Walker.
Yeah, Walker.
You know who George Walker was? That they're all named after?
No.
He was the first chairman of the American International Corporation.
Okay.
That thing I told you about?
Yeah.
The octopus?
Yeah,
they pulled their resources?
Right.
But I'll tell you, it was another major change, a shift in the power structure happened, I believe, after World War II. right before the war ended, most of that gold was moved into Holland.
Holland or Sweden?
I think it was moved into Holland, a lot of it, because there was a bridge in Nijmegen that was kept open for the Germans.
Yeah.
They made a movie about it called The Bridge Too Far.
Yeah.
For some strange reason, that bridge remained in German hands much longer than it needed to. And I believe that there was gold being moved across that bridge.
Probably.
Into Holland.
Yeah.
So it's no mistake that the Bilderbergers first meet in Holland.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the Japanese had planned to take their gold back to Japan, but unfortunately for them, the United States Navy got control of Pacific before they could get the gold back.
Right.
So they had to bury the gold in the Philippines. The gold market is a manipulated monopoly run by big money, old money.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
it's a game that they play.
Yes.
All right? So it's just like diamonds.
And there's a lot more to that.
They
gold.
only release diamonds very slowly and very gradually, and they have warehouses full of big, huge diamonds. If they wanted to release, would change the marketplace, but they can't do that because they would lose control of the profit. See, because here we got trillions of dollars worth of gold sitting there buried in the ground.
Right.
And the way they buried it was they'd have an operation. They'd have like a couple of squads in trucks move this stuff into a cave.
Right.
As soon as the trucks were all in the cave, they'd dynamite the front, kill everybody in it. See, that way there's nobody to tell the tale.
No witnesses.
Right, exactly. So there's no witnesses. So they had I think about 120 treasure sites in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And they had a complicated system of maps for the recovery, and they didn't plan to come back for a long time to recover this stuff, right? Okay, so, but a guy named Ferdinand Marcos takes power in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Suddenly becomes one of the richest people in the world.
Yes.
How did that happen?
He did pretty good, didn't he? Yeah.
How did that happen?
His wife with all the shoes.
Right, but how did he become one of the richest people in the world with the biggest yacht in the world and you know what I mean, the most expensive horses in the world, and then he's taken out of power in a coup and disappeared.
Yeah.
And,
Marcos.
What was happening was under Marcos they began to excavate the Japanese gold, and what they did with it was the same thing they did with the German gold. They created a secret banking system called the Black Eagle Fund. Because they divided it up into political action funds.
Right.
To create propaganda and terror around the world. Some funds were designated to Japan, some funds were designated to Italy, some funds were designated... See what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They basically created a highly secretive but almost bottomless pit funded political action committee in every country they wanted to influence. And then they began to do dirty tricks with the money.
Oh, yeah.
And that money... Think of what that money is today, because it just doesn't disappear. Money like that sits in a vault somewhere, and somebody's got a certificate for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was worth $2 trillion in 1944,
what's it worth now?
Exactly. And so I think what people don't understand is that when money gets that big, it touches everything.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Exactly. And there's no way anybody can come up against it and win. You can't come into conflict with anything that big and think you're going to overcome it, because once they realize they're in conflict with you, they can come at you from every direction you could ever conceive of. They can pull strings on you in every way you could possibly imagine.
I've had literally dozens of people that have come to me, turned right to me and said, they're going to come kill you. And, but now, I mean, in the beginning, if they had done something like that, they could have blew this whole thing away, just put a bullet in my head and that would have ended it.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I think that would have made you a martyr.
Well, it would now. But back
Right.
4 or 5 years ago, I wasn't that well known.
Right.
They could have stopped it, but
I
they
don't think
didn't.
they're that afraid of it, to tell you the truth. I think that
They should be,
Yeah.
because this is going to change everything, Steve. I mean, once you start taking that oil, you start thinking like a rational person, and that's exactly what they don't want. People awake.
Now,
It's not like smoking pot. It's a different thing altogether.
have you heard anything back from Valerie Corral yet out in California?
No, haven't heard a thing.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on down there.
All right, because she's got a couple of patients doing it.
Yeah.
I just want to keep an eye on them as part of the impartiality of this.
Well, I mean, when you take somebody, especially if they're working with people that are badly damaged by the medical system already, I mean, you can't save them all, but you
Right.
can save our batting average is unbelievable.
What would you say it is?
I would say people that come to us with no medical treatment other than a diagnosis with terminal cancer, it's over 90%.
And how many patients would fit that category?
Well, anybody that's stage 4 cancer.
No, I mean, how many of those have you given oil to?
Oh, God.
Are we talking dozens?
A lot. No, hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah. And I would say somewhere well over 90% in that situation. You know, basically the only ones we don't seem to be able to save are the ones that just waited too long. You know, they get the oil and then the next day they die because they didn't get enough time to get the oil into them. But the ones that we find are the hardest are the people that have had extensive chemo and radiation. Those people are by far the hardest to cure. But even with them, we have a really good batting average. I'd say 75–80%. So it's, you know, there's no question what the medicine does. It's there right in front of us. And I mean, I know I had arthritis. I had other problems too that the oil just took away. And we got half the world running around now with, well, diseases or chronic pain. And the look in people's faces, I mean, I've had people come back to me, like people suffering. I mean, you can see the pain right in their faces. And they come and get the oil. The very next day, I've had this over dozens of times. People call me and say, look, I haven't had a pain since I took that oil. What's going on here? You know, like after suffering for 10, 20 years in agony. And, you know, it's so simple. I had a guy, he was covered in psoriasis. And he come to me and asked me about it. And I told him, I said, get on the oil. I said, psoriasis comes from within. So by eating the oil, we'll correct it and treat it externally. And about 2 weeks later, he came back to my house. Now this is a guy, he was about 57 at the time. And he came into the house about 2 weeks later. Most of the psoriasis was gone. And he's sitting there looking at me and he said, Rick, he said, I got psoriasis when I was 16 years old. He said, that disease ruined my life. He said, I went to the medical system, I did everything you can name to try to get rid of it. And he said, I never could. And he said, you come along with this oil, and he said, boom, nothing to it. He said, you know, and he said, look what they did to me. They ruined my damn life. And it's always been, the medicine has always been there. It's horrifying. I treated another guy up there in Moncton. Oh God, it was horrible. He had psoriasis on his privates. So bad he couldn't even walk. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I made a tincture up for him. And he used a tincture and cured it. But but I like to see people eating the medicine. You know, especially once you're 40, 50 years old, bad things are, even if you don't have cancer yet, bad things are happening in your body. Arthritis is developing, MS, diabetes, and God knows what else. Well, you know, to me, it's like everybody, once you're 40 or 50, if you're going to take the oil, you should take it just as if you had terminal cancer. Eat 60 grams of it as quickly as you can. It usually takes about 3 months. But I have had people that took the whole treatment in 30 days. So, but get the treatment into you, reset your whole body back to a healthy state, and that's exactly what it does. If you're overweight, you'll lose weight to beat the band because it detoxifies you. And then once you get yourself back to a healthy state, drop it back to a maintenance dose. Maybe 6–8 grams a year. That's all you have to take. A gram, half a gram to a gram a month. That solves it. You're in good health and away you go. And you're going to live a lot longer and you're going to be a lot healthier. But it's almost a comedy. I mean, well, look what the medical system does for people with diabetic ulcers. Now, they can't heal that. They'll keep putting bandages on until finally gangrene sets in. And then they'll lob off the foot, and then they'll lob off the leg. You know, well, and they got the nerve to call that medicine. I mean, I can walk in with this oil, and that's not even giving it to them internally. Just putting the oil right on the diabetic ulcer. No time at all, heal it up. Because the oil, again, the oil resonates. I think it resonates with human DNA. And it's almost like it tells the body how to heal itself. And believe me, I've seen some gruesome diabetic ulcers. Really gruesome. There just seems to be no end to what this medicine can do. Lady down in Beverly Hills, she contacted me here a few months ago. Her son had pigmentosa, you know, the spots. He was only about 18. He had this pigmentosa. Her father had Alzheimer's. Her mother wasn't well, and her uncle, he had a diabetic with cancer. Now, she cured her son's pigmentosa, I think, in about 3 weeks on the oil. Her father went on the oil. Now, she said he's 82 years old. As a matter of fact, I got a picture of him home. He's 82 years old, and she said, Rick, he was just fumbling around. He didn't even know where he was. We put him on that oil. She said he's out selling real estate again. Her mother's doing a lot better. Her uncle, she just put him under treatment about 2 weeks ago. He's doing much better. The diabetic ulcers are all healing up, and he's feeling better. He's going to the bathroom by himself again and things like that. I mean, nothing but wonderful results. I mean, damn it, don't we have the right to life? You know, this is the way I look at this. They're denying us the medicine that can save us. So they're telling us basically that we have no right to life. They can play with us and manipulate us in any which way they want, make us pay, you know, these huge fees for medications that don't work. So it's okay if we kill you because we're rich and you're not. That's not good enough. And that's not what mankind is supposed to be about. I mean, damn it, we're supposed to care about each other. And that's what I see wrong in this world. Is like, you know, Joe's wife down the road 4 or 5 miles, well, she's got cancer, and everybody says, oh, that's too bad about Joe's wife. You know, then another 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden it's your wife. And Joe's husband, he's sitting there thinking, well, that's too bad about her, you know. It's like, nobody really cares. It's all, like, the world has become so self-centered. All I give a damn about is my paycheck and, you know, and what I am. Well, in truth, you know, none of us are really very much. I mean, we're just humans. And, you know, we got to learn to start caring about each other. And we got to stop all of this nonsense with the wars and all this killing for no reason. It just horrifies me when I realize what's going on in, well, Iraq and Afghanistan. And I think of Canadian troops over there, you know, and they got these ribbons.
Iraq's all about oil. Afghanistan's all about opium.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, when the Taliban was in charge, they had basically eradicated the opium. They ripped it all up.
Yeah, but they were just a totally manufactured and controlled fundamentalist religion that was being positioned already back then to go into a jihad against you know, the United States and all that. They were working on that system already. You know, it's like, did you ever read the book 1984, where the guy joins the revolution, and then he figures out, oh shoot, the revolution's being manufactured from inside the intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
That's who runs it.
That's right.
Yes, well, that's who's run every revolution. Wake up, people. It's like big money touches everything. Don't think you get to be a big, well-funded revolutionary without big money behind it.
That's right. Well, look at Barry Seal. I mean, God almighty, like, he flew all of those drugs, all that cocaine into the United States for the CIA.
Right.
And now the government is fighting the war on drugs? Doesn't the government run the CIA? Right. The biggest drug dealers in the world are the damn governments.
Well, remember I mentioned Skull and Bones and Henry Simpson and AIG and all those connections. Well, guess where the money came that created Skull and Bones? The most powerful fraternity, college fraternity in America. Came from opium.
Yep.
Now,
that's right.
It was the Boston Brahmin families that joined forces with the British to create a worldwide monopoly on opium.
Well, back in China,
and then they discovered when China made it illegal because their trade imbalance was so off.
Yeah.
They discovered, oh wow, opium's worth 18 times more money now that it's illegal in China. Suddenly, opium was illegal everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And it was selling for 18 times more money. So, and this is the way it worked. the Perkins family would have a boat. The boat would be docked at some island, I think. Maybe it was Taiwan, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, this boat was just a floating warehouse. And the opium would be moved on the boat and off the boat, depending on who was dropping it off and who was picking it up.
Yeah.
And Perkins was taking a cut. But Perkins wasn't in the opium business.
Right.
He was just running a warehouse.
Yeah, just my warehouse. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So when you go to the historical record,
yeah,
and you go to those Boston Brahmins families, like the Cabots and Perkins and so on and so forth, you find them saying that they're just, we're just in the China trade. We're
just simple merchants.
We just deal in China.
Yeah, right.
Yes, we have a lot of clipper ships.
Yeah.
We don't run opium on those clipper ships.
No. Just cargo. Just cargo. It's sad. It's so sad, Steve.
But
I'm all against any inoculations, these flu things, any of it. It's all bad for you and you shouldn't be taking it. I'll tell you one thing about this subject. Once people understand it and know what this does, an awful good number of them, they do become very fervent believers. Well, it's not about belief. You know what you've seen. It's the truth. But I've gone up there and defied the medical system many times. Show me any medicine on this planet that can do what this stuff does. Even there's nothing out there that even begins to compare with it.
Well, I think the two other plants that have vast medical potential are opium and cocoa.
Yeah, but the only thing is they took the healing out of it. Like opium, I've got a book home, 1895, the Brompton Cancer Hospital in England. I can't remember the doctor's name now, but in a paragraph that he wrote, he said the only thing he's ever found to be effective on cancer was opium. And people suffering from cancer can live for years and years as long as they have, and I was reading this thinking, opium? And then it struck me. They're not talking about this refined crap. They're talking about raw opium.
Yeah, it's got a lot of...
Still got the healing in it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's just the best pain medication there is, basically. And also, if somebody's really in a very painful situation, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, little opium could go a long way towards regulating them back to a healthy environment. But, and coca leaf has a tremendous amount of medical applications,
Oh, yeah?
So those are the three principal plants that they made illegal for a reason. It's because the medical system doesn't want those natural plants to compete with their medicines.
That's right. But what right do they have to take? I mean, I understand opium. Okay, addictive and dangerous. Yes, it can be.
Well, yeah, but so is coffee. I mean,
yes.
Like, opium was legal for thousands of years. The monks and nuns used to grow it and use it in their hospitals.
Right.
And yeah, some people got addicted to it. Okay, so they smoked opium every night before they went to sleep.
Yeah.
So what?
So what? That's right. That's the way I look at it too. Those old Chinamen lived to be 100 years old, for Christ's sakes.
I mean, we can see the difference between a stone cold junkie living out on the street who's got no life, and a professional person who has a career who smokes opium before he goes to sleep.
But the problem here is, though, like opium, yeah, it is addictive and whatnot, but hemp isn't, and it's not dangerous. Now, how the hell did you outlaw that one?
Well, that was the most important one to get outlawed.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Lately, there's a big vogue on conspiracies and secret societies, even though they try and make it fun like it's all just a big tinfoil hat brigade. In real life, they're trying to steer this information, which is why we have these big blockbuster movies that tell you that the Masons are doing this, or that obviously the biggest blockbuster would be the Da Vinci Code. There's a secret group of very powerful goddess worshippers who are keeping the bloodline of Mary Magdalene alive, whatever. Okay, so that's the story that's out there, that's big time, that gets all the press, all right. I'll tell you what the real story is, because it is true that secret societies have been running the world for thousands
Yes.
of years, and they have a secret agenda.
Yes.
Okay? And one of the most powerful secret societies is the Vatican.
Oh, yes.
And one of their oldest and their most powerful agendas, that's all hidden and embedded,
Right.
is to keep cannabis.
Oh, well, look
Away.
at the Inquisition. If you
People
were,
don't realize that millions of people were killed for cannabis possession
yeah.
in the 1500s.
Well, using cannabis as a medicine made you an instant heretic.
No, just having it in your house
Yeah.
was
That's right.
proof of witchcraft.
Yeah.
And that's not, you can go to The Witch's Hammer, it's the actual book
Yeah.
that they wrote for the Inquisition. It's their guidelines, and you can read right there how anybody who possesses cannabis is automatically condemned.
Yeah.
So
It's nothing
now
new.
what they did over the years was they've changed this operation. We still have an Inquisition.
Yeah, we do.
It's not the steel hand that it once was. It has a velvet glove over
Sort
it.
of.
But,
I don't know if you call the DEA a velvet glove or not.
well, in terms of the way it works is they've created this phony facade around the whole thing that they're actually doing good when they're actually not. So that's the, you know,
Well, people on all levels. Like I was talking to a state trooper here just 3 or 4 nights ago. His wife was one of the victims in that Aaron Brockovich story. She died at 36 years old from cancer, and he's a state trooper. And he told me, he said, I've got fibromyalgia, and he said, another injury. So he said, I walk around, he said, I'm out there on the road, he said, with morphine patches on, I'm taking over 100 Dilaudid a month. And he said, to be honest, Rick, he said, sometimes I don't even know where I'm at. And I said, well, I can believe that one. He said, this is retarded. He said, I'm out there on the road, you know, arresting people, doing this, doing that. He said, full of this crap. And he said, it's doing nothing. He said, he knows himself. He told me, he said, it's killing me. And he said, I can feel it. And he said, yet, if I go in there and they test me and they find marijuana or THC in my blood, I lose my job. And, you know, he was just so disgusted. He said, my God, Rick, he said, I don't know, you know, he said, I don't know where my head was at. He said, he said, the police have to realize what they're doing. You know, we're killing ourselves and our loved ones. And I said, that's what I've been trying to tell them. But he was right on board. And, you know, he's wide awake now. I told him about LEAP and all these other organizations. I said, get involved with them. You know, all cops aren't bad. I'm not saying that. And all doctors aren't bad. But, well, up here in Canada, believe me, like a good doctor is like hen's teeth up here. But I've talked to several doctors in the States that were very much in favor of this. Matter of fact, a couple of them had cancer and used it to treat themselves. So, there's, you know, the people, I think, you know, to be a healer, you have to be a certain type of person. Now, most of these guys become doctors, well, all they're interested in is the big paycheck and the Mercedes-Benz. But the caring for others, you know, wanting to truly help others, that's quite rare. But it's still out there. Cocaine. And even in court, when the Mounties were testifying, like I asked them, you know, I'd show them that full-page article the Chronicle or the Spring Hill Record did. And I said, would a drug dealer go to a newspaper and have an article like this written about him? Well, obviously. And then they were saying this in front of a jury. Obviously not. And then I asked them about the tape. I said, what about the videotape that I gave the RCMP on May 6, 2005? Well, we know of this tape, but we've never seen it. I said, is it common practice for the RCMP not to look at evidence? And they wouldn't even answer me. And of course, the judge, he wouldn't force it. Well, then they brought their big marijuana expert up. Well, that was good. Because they told me, oh, we're going to bring the RCMP's marijuana expert in. And I told the Crown prosecutor, I said, you put him on the stand and I'm going to shred him. And they didn't pay no attention to me, so they put him on. So in the cross-examination, I just asked him, I said, you're here as a marijuana expert for the RCMP, is that correct? He said, yes. I said, what do you know about hemp? Well, I don't know anything about hemp. And I said, you're a marijuana expert and you don't know that marijuana is hemp? And he just looked at me all stupid, and then the fool started to argue with me. Well, you know, marijuana is one thing and hemp is another, and blah, 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 like that. And I reached down like that, and here's the law from 1923. I said, strangely, this is the original law put in place in Canada in 1923. I said, strangely, it says nothing about marijuana, but it does say Indian hemp. You know, so I shredded him. But, you know, at the end of the trial, there was no question. I mean, everybody in the courtroom, I beat them hands down. Even without the things I should have had to, you know, like the witnesses and whatnot, I beat them, and they knew it.
Did you represent yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so the jury was out for 3 hours, and they called us back, and went back into the courtroom. Well, the Crown Prosecutor's not present. So I'm sitting there thinking, where's he at? So after about 5 minutes, in he comes, and then the jury comes in, and it was just guilty, guilty, guilty. I couldn't believe it. And I'm standing there like this, what the hell happened here? And then one of the ladies that was sitting in the audience, it was Rick Dwyer's wife, Margaret. Now, you got to know Margaret. I mean, Margaret wouldn't lie for anyone. And Margaret called me up the next day, and they said, you know, I seen Doug Shatford leaving the jury room about 3 minutes before they come in with your verdict. And I said, what? She said, I seen him. And I said, Margaret, go back to the courthouse, go sit in the same chair you sat in, and make sure what you're saying. So she went back to the courthouse. She told them she lost a stone out of her ring or something. They let her in, and she sat in that same chair, and she looked down the hallway, and she called me back, and she said, Rick, the only doorway you can see from the position I was sitting, the only doorway you can see when you look down the hallway is the jury room. So I got in touch with the judge, told him what was going on. Wouldn't do a damn thing about it. Nothing. Just like, you know, we can tamper with the jury, but you can't. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, you know, I figured right at that point, I said, they're out to hang me. But then when we got in court for the sentencing, I know I had Duncan Beveridge. They made him, he's a Supreme Court judge now, I think because of this case. But he called me in the side room there before the sentencing, and he said, well, you know, Rick, he said, the truth of the matter here is that the government wants the researchers to bring this out. And he said that, I looked at him and I said, listen, I said, we've been waiting over 100 years for the researchers to bring this out. I said, are you willing to wait another 100? And I said, Duncan, if one of your kids tomorrow were diagnosed with cancer, I said, what would you be looking for? And his head, down goes the head. So then we go into the courtroom, and the old Cashillon, he's the judge, and he's sitting there, and he said, in my 34 years in the legal system, he said, I've never seen a case like this. There was no criminal intent. He said, and they come right out and said it. He said, the scientific evidence does exist to back up everything he's saying. Plus, he has all these patients that are saying the same thing. Now, I was facing 12 years in jail. They gave me a $2,000 fine, and they didn't even put me on probation.